sometimes I expect myself, I demand of myself to go into new territories. You can get stuck. Like, what do I do? What do I do now? And then I think you just go to what you're interested in. And that's why I have these books out. And so I just flip through the books and I think, well, what is it about the lichen? Or what is it about this thing about motion? Or what is it about the James Webb? I'm not going to copy the mark. I'm not going to copy the image. It's something about the movement of gas and air, or the aliveness of trees or plants or bees. I experience painting that way. It's so alive. I'm a big fossil nut. So out in the yard, somebody sometimes going to come here and they're going to say, oh my God, how did this ammonite from Scotland get next to this brachiopod from Italy, get next to this other thing? This is part of the bone of a 7 million year old camel. What it is it's a talisman to remind us that we are just this little tiny moment. And so this is 230 million years old. This is 560 million. Yahoo. Basically, I used to be sort of a famous sculptor, but now I've segued into an unknown painter. That's good. It's been, 18 years or something since I've really made some bigger sculptures. I got this big Pew grant. When was the last time somebody gave you $50,000 for being cool? So I made a whole bunch of works. You'll see some that are in the studio. But after that, I became ill, and I was ill for a couple of years. When I was ill, I just started making these paintings, small paintings. And then it was so quick compared to the sculpture. And so, I have been threatening to secretly, in Santa's workshop, make some more small, pieces, but I don't want to make the production part. And like stuff, they multiply at nighttime. They propagate. I swear to God. My father always thought that I would be a marine biologist or something in the natural sciences. So when I was in the 5th grade, I read this book, God's Graves and Scholars, History of Archaeology. And so I extrapolated that all houses were like Troy. So I organized all the neighborhood kids to start digging in the backyard. And we dug and dug and dug, 6 of us, put down planks, did this whole thing. My father came back from his work in New York. I said, call up National Geographic. We have found the site. And he said, I know you've looked at everything. You've scanned from the attic to the basement. You've looked at everything. You've looked at where the water comes out. There's the pipe, everything. He said, and where do you think that water goes after it leaves the basement? Oh my God, it goes someplace else. I had dug up the whole septic system, the tank, all the pipes, the big, whole thing. And I didn't know what it was. So when you get it wrong, and it's then you got to fill in the hole, and you're embarrassed and everything else. When you're an artist, nobody friggin' cares. And you get to go on and make the next thing. I think I lost where I was. And then in order to find where I was, I had to free myself. And I had to let go of all those things, or a lot of them. And I think what really replaced it was this really intense relationship with nature, which is much more about animism and about the sort of dangers of what we do to nature or our own nature And the sculptures have, or at least the period of sculpture work that's in this room, is much more to do with the body and to do with the physicality of the body. And so I think I made this transition. And so it's not really sculpture or painting. It's much more of a almost philosophical thing where, I sort of left my body for the body of the bee. I believe in self-organizing systems. Starfish and nebulae, they need no direction. They self-organize. They know their structures, so they self-organize. They make their own thing. And so I actually think that is magnificent. And so we think of ourselves as dominant. But what about the fabulous ant that can smell through its feet and know where it's going? Sometimes I'm close up and sometimes I'm far away. I call it the Emily Dickinson effect, which is what you gain, what you see in your own backyard is a microcosm of the world. You look at the stars at nighttime and you think that it's graphic. You're looking into space. So one thing is in front of another thing. That's abstract. Space is abstract. So actually, that thing about abstraction and representation actually doesn't exist. Or decorative. We say it's decorative because it's about it being a tablecloth or a bedspread. And actually, it's pattern. It's fabulous. It's all pattern. I'm interested in formally a shape and then the kind of calligraphy around it. And sometimes they're about like imagining space. When we were dust and gas, thinking about what things looked like before, or like who was on this land, who will be on this land when we're gone, what will they eat? All of these ridiculous questions are what bring you to make something. And I'm thinking about, the psychological motion, let's say in that painting over there, like pink is a beautiful color, but there's something very ominous about this painting. When I feel like I've done a good painting, I feel like it has that quality of ecstasy, of the color and the space, and also that kind of dread. I don't want it to be a direct narrative, but I want it to have something where a person is experiencing the thing spatially, but also emotionally. There's a sculpture in Ephesus, and so it's a very famous sculpture, and the art historians would hassle about, are these breasts, are these testicles, are they seed pods? So it was about the sort of gender of this thing, and I said, that's ridiculous. I'm going to make this piece that's about that piece, that's about the seed pod that is also those things, the male and the female. And so the whole idea of things being tangential or contingent or messy, it seems much more interesting, and the work that I'm satisfied by, other people's work, has that quality. Long ago, somebody said to me, "Oh, you have such a breadth." And I said, "Is that a compliment or an insult?" And because I'm not so interested in kind of forming a style, a tight thing. It's like, hey, somebody else can make their donuts. I'm not doing that. I'm exploring. I'm a seeker. I only learned about 10 minutes ago that I was super smart. I mean, I grew up with there were 5 of us. I have 4 brothers, 2 older brothers and 2 younger brothers. And my eldest brother is really a genius. And I was just the worker, and I worked away. And, was considered to be kind of a little bit dumb and not that articulate. So I just did my own thing. It was an interesting thing. I remember saying to my mother, just saying, you were much more beautiful than I ever was or ever will be. You had much more money. You were much better educated. You had a better education than I did. You're a genius. We all understand that, but I have one thing that you don't have. I finish, not because I'm the most beautiful, the smartest, the most talented, but because I want to. A lot of artists become they get famous or this thing, and they start taking themselves so seriously. The best ones don't. I would tell my students, we're not making fucking donuts here. This is not a factory. We're not doing Hallmark cards of the mind either. You have to come as yourself. I feel very privileged to be an artist. And, I just don't want to hold a body grinder again. And so as we travel to see those bees, they have a life and are on their path. And we get to enter this collaboration. And we've done a pretty poor job so far. But maybe we can pull out of it somehow. I feel a togetherness. In my hand is this brachiopod that nobody ever saw before, that was 260 million years old. And I just picked up this rock and there it is. Or this 500-year-old potsherd. And so it's about looking and then seeing what that means. So I don't feel that it's scary. I feel that it's actually liberating because it means we'll survive this. And if we don't, it turns out the bees and the microbes and the lichen will. Happy day.
This video is sponsored by Center for Maine Contemporary Art's Virtual Look Inside Educators Portal, made possible by the Sherman Family Foundation and K.H.R. McNeely Family Foundation, the Dorothea and Leo Rapkin Foundation, and our generous viewers.